Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to get this conversation going after the recent protest at the California Capitol. My name is Denise. I am co-founder of Freedom Angels, and I am located in San Joaquin County.
Hello, I am Tara, also co-founder of Freedom Angels in the Northern Sierra Nevada mountains.
Yes, so today we're going to talk about all things that have to do with mandates in the state of California and really national. We're going to go through the strategies that we have used, and Tara is actually going to go through what SB 277 was. I know we have a lot of very new people to the movement, so we're going to kind of walk you through what California politics are, as well as how to move in the current terrain and who really are the key players in all of this. So what you can do is you can find us at freedom-angels.org. It's a beautiful website that has just been updated with all the tools and the resources that Freedom Angels has used in multiple different counties and multiple different states. So you can go, I'll probably do a screen share in a little bit to show you exactly what we've been doing, especially something called United Counties of America that we started really when all of this started kicking off. So let's get into the meat of all of this. Let's start talking about the mandates. So we're going to kind of walk you through what SB 277 really was, because what we know of it now is very not what it was as originally drafted. So Tara, you want to introduce yourself and get into it?
Yes. Okay. So we're going to start with childhood or school vaccine mandates. And that we're going to start at 2015 in California, SB 277. The most important thing for everyone to know is what that legislation looked like at the beginning. It was simply comply with the full schedule, the timing, and every dose of the 10 on the schedule, or move state. There was no other position. There was no other exemptions. There was nothing. That was the bill language. And that is why people need to know that, is because that is the end goal. This is not something hidden. This is the stated goal, to have only medical exemptions worldwide, to vaccinations available, and to advance mandates across the board, whether it's for children, adults, for school, for work, for participating in society, for all forms. So just know there's a long roadmap and very clearly stated positions on this. So what happened in California in 2015 is thousands and thousands of parents from across the state engaged locally and at the state level to fight back on this legislation. And through a very, very long 6-month battle, there was a lot of really hard lessons learned for parents engaging at that time. And this is why we're talking now, because we want to share the lessons learned from the last 7 years so that everyone is up-leveled to the landscape and the terrain and can then move into the strongest, most effective actions from here on out. So what happened is we ended up getting some amendments passed, and that is how the legislature passed it. The push and the pressure for it to be passed was so strong that it was going to go through no matter what. And to get people's votes, they added some amendments. So one amendment was children on IEPs and 504s are exempted from the vaccine childhood schedule mandate. Those are 10 vaccines. The reason why this is important to know is because what's up at the table that has everyone rightly concerned and pushing back is the COVID shot, which, as we know, has vaccines in general have an abysmal safety profile and such. And there's no liability on any of them. The COVID shot is at that 10x on both counts, on liability and safety and testing. So the important thing to know is, so we got kids on IEPs and 504s are exempted. There is, in the last 7 years, parents have had to battle very hard to get that honored. That is something you're going to have to take to your school district and fight for them. The next thing we got a grandfather clause for kids, which ends this next year. There was only, it daylighted different grades as it moved forward. And we also had a broad medical exemption added where you could get it included family history and family genetics. And that is what was really used extensively across the state since 2015. That was the battle we fought in 2019 where they came back to remove it. We knew they were going to come back to remove it, and they began maneuvers for it literally as they were passing the bill in 2015. They had a 4-year plan, and then they went and removed it. The last thing that we did was get what's called number 11. And that is for any future shots that are added to the schedule, there will be a personal belief exemption if it's added through the California Department of Public Health, which is where we're at right now. That's whose hands it's in right now. Or the legislature will have to take it into their own hands to run it through the full legislative process, put it on the schedule through their channels, and refuse to put they get to decide then if they're going to add a PBE to it or not. So what you have is a scenario where a lot of people forgot about what the battle looked like. Oh, last thing, this is really critical. How could I forget? You were not allowed to homeschool on the original language of the bill. We fought hard and only got a limited form of homeschooling on the as an exemption. So 2 things you need to know. 1, homeschooling is still under fire, and they will make moves to take that away and restrict it even further, which really comes down to removal. And people must know that exemptions, just get this in your knowledge base. Exemptions are not permanent, and they are not protection, and they both create and validate the control system. When you have a system, it's like, think of it as binary, zeros and ones. You're either vaccinated or you have an exemption. That you are in a tracking system, and that is one of their predominant goals for having a full database of private health records that they can use to toggle back and forth with control measures. Denise, you want to jump in?
There was a piece, the children on IEPs, you do not need a vaccine and you do not need an exemption. Your child is exempt from needing either or. So that's one of the things that you do have to battle for. So now that you understand the 277 and what that actually was, now let's talk about 276. What parents should know who are new to this is you're going to go through a level of shock to know how politics is really ran, because a lot of times we have no idea unless we're actually fully engaged in it. But you're going to go through the shock, you're going to go through the grief, and then you're going to have to catch up for the past 6 years of all the things that people in health freedom have been trying to battle. You are at a point to where you're going to have to step in and really start understanding politics. This is one of the hardest things you're going to have to do, is understand politics if you're going to battle this, but also understand schools are unsafe. And the policies that are being put in place by every single state, it doesn't matter if you're red or blue, everybody is dealing with the same thing, just at different levels. You're going to have to get engaged all the time. And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy, but that's why we're here. This is why we've decided to come out and do these webinars, to give you the understanding and the knowledge to be able to move in this current terrain. So let's fast forward to 2019 SB 276 and what that actually means as far as the removal of privacy between doctor and patient, the database, which was huge. That's one of the biggest things, is the database, the tracking, and also the medical, your child's medical records and your medical records and your medical decisions now being put in the hands of public health. So we're going to go through what 276 really means, so you understand that there's really no functional exemptions left in the state of California. So Tara, you want to go through the bullet points on what 276 means for the state?
Yes, basically it was the removal of the medical exemption back to a standard of care so narrow that functionally no one qualifies. This standard was critical to the overall stated goals of only having narrow medical exemptions for all ages, kids and adults, for the, for the future. So it set this, though it was children in schools in California, it set the standard of care for the nation, which sets it actually for the world. To qualify, you have to have had suffered coma, encephalitis, or
Anaphylactic shock.
Thank you, anaphylactic shock. But thank you for to a specific shot. If your child, so for example, if your child had anaphylaxis to DTaP, they could be, they could get they would qualify for a medical exemption just for that one shot. But to qualify for any other shots to be able to remain in school, and this is for both private and public, preschool, daycare, church daycare, K through 12, all of it. It covers it all with those limited exemptions. They would have to then, and I'm going to give you the actual reality of what they would need to qualify. That child, that parent and child would have to go to an ER and ask for each of those different other 9 shots to be injected into their child. Their child would need to suffer one of those 3, an anaphylaxis, coma, or encephalitis, to that vaccine and survive it and be functional enough to attend school or daycare. And then they would have to go through all of them to be able to qualify for exemption. So you can see that means there is functionally no medical exemptions. Plus the persecution of the doctors made it such that no doctor could withstand the levels of pressure and scrutiny they put on a doctor trying to do the best for their patient. Meaning that, again, doctors were criminalized, vilified, and had their medical exemption, their licenses removed, even while functioning lawfully under SB 277 guidelines. So they went retroactively and persecuted those doctors and removed their medical licenses. And this is the landscape for anyone now, even if you're looking at COVID shots, any age, and for masks or anything that has been set up like that. Then the database. The database is really, again, this is think of vaccine passports, think of digital IDs. It's all the critical piece of it. If you put your public health control, if you put your health information into these, they create a public health control structure that they're able to manipulate and control with. The one thing that Denise brought up is really important when she said, you're going to be really sad when you learn you're going to go through the process of, like she said, grief, and you're going to be pissed off because it doesn't matter how much data, how much science you bring to the table. It doesn't matter the laws that you bring. It doesn't matter any of it. And it doesn't matter the suffering and damage that your children have suffered. They will not listen to it. And so that is why it's ultimately in the hands of the parents and the children to not comply, to simply not accept the terms.
Yeah, so the reason why 276 hit was legislators said they were trying to cut down on fake medical exemptions that were being written. However, if you go through the articles, you go through statements from people like Lorena Gonzalez, you see that it said that they never had fake exemptions. So Lorena Gonzalez came out, and she is here in California, Democrat here in California, and said, we haven't found any yet. However, people in her position, her family has medical exemptions. So it's kind of interesting that this is why you're going to be pissed off, because they don't listen to the science. During 276, when there was we were battling this bill, hundreds of doctors were called from parents. They did this expose where they called hundreds of doctors and said, my child, needs a medical exemption or has a medical exemption, whatever statements they were making. The doctors that were called said, no, we cannot write one. We will not write one, because they were terrified if they wrote one, they were going to get on a database and the medical board was going to come at them. So when I was on Facebook, we were seeing there's a bunch of new parent groups, and parents were really unaware and flabbergasted that doctors were not writing mask exemptions or medical exemptions. And they both go hand in hand, because they didn't want to be targeted. They didn't want to have their licenses removed. They didn't want to have to go up to the board and have to, have all of their patients' records given to the board members. So this is where it is non-compliance. You cannot say, okay, a medical exemption is going to be, it's going to be the answer for my children. They're not going to write them, and they're not going to honor them, especially, with the PVEs. One thing I do want to make clear is that California did not have religious exemptions for children K through 12. They had personal belief exemptions. So again, that goes back to we no longer have functional exemptions left. So you're going to get through that. The anger of your children are going to have their medical information in the hands of public health. However, the people who do write these laws and bills, their families are able to get these medical exemptions. So this is part of the political game that you're going to have to move through and understand. Non-compliance is the only way. Otherwise, you're going to be in the tracking system. You're going to have to continue to search for these tools that are not going to be available for you anymore. So non-compliance is the way to go.
Yeah. And one thing is that it's super important. The most important thing is to get engaged and to accept no terms other than, nothing short of full authority over parenting your child and taking care of their health and best interest, as well as their education. We will let you know that many of us that have worked, I can say, Freedom Angels on strategies leading on this in our state and in the nation. Our children are never going to be part of the system. We don't comply. And you'll find many homeschooling parents who have led the charge, even though their children are not currently or ever going to be in private or public schools. And this is because this is a battle for all of our children, for us as parents, for human rights, for civil rights, for true health and well-being, and a society and a world that we want for our kids. So we have to engage. We'll tell you to get into some of the politics of it. It's going to be ugly. You're going to look and you're going to see the very first thing that you do when you fight any legislation on public health control measures, or now, as you can see, on corona control measures, is you look at the political affiliation. None of this should be political. It shouldn't be about a party, but you're going to look at it and you're going to have to see how many Democrats and how many Republicans, and that is going to inform what your battle looks like and what chance you have. The Republicans are on the side of protecting parental and human rights and civil rights, and the Democrats are not on this issue. So
let me back on that a little bit. It's true. Here in California, the Republicans put a sign out on a desk during 276 and said, reps are for you. We understand that, but it's not always the case. You're not always going to have Republicans who are going to be protecting bodily autonomy and choice. It is really up to you. You have to do your due diligence, know who your representatives are, know where their position is, and hold them accountable. So yes, Tara, you're correct. Obviously, we have to look at, they always vote down party lines, but it's so funny how the terrain has changed. We really have to be super hyper aware of what politicians are in office, where the position stands, because there's some Republican politicians here in San Joaquin County and Stockton that did a commercial asking people to get vaccinated. Republicans, Democrats, politicians are not here to give us medical advice. So, but yes, I just wanted to, and we started getting people in here like Republicans are for us.
No, put it this way, you have a better chance of pressuring them to do the right thing. You have to take each person as an individual. This is just that's the first general overview to look at what your terrain and strategy will look like. One thing for state legislation, get familiar with LegiScan. That's a website that tracks all the bills. You can look at the vote count. You can look at its process. You're going to want to get familiar with that. And everyone's going to have to learn what is a heat map. A heat map is essentially a vote count. And the way you're going to do it is you're going to have 3 columns. One is the people that you know are going to vote, say no on the piece on no against a vax mandate for COVID. The others are the ones that you know are going to vote a yes. And then the rest is the movable middle. One thing what you want to do, whether you're talking about a school board official or a public health office or a city council or a board of supervisors or a state senator or assembly member, is you're going to want to get their position. You're going to want to get their position on what, on whichever it is, whatever legislation or position, policy position you're trying to press. You want to force them to take a side, to pick their side on an issue. And then you're going to know what to do. So the big idea for if anyone's going to try to work on preventing a legislative bill passing to put the COVID shot on the required vaccine schedule for kids in California, you're going to want to get a serious ground game going around the districts, or especially around that movable middle. And one of the important things, it doesn't matter where you are too, the school boards are going to be key. We know the school boards have the authority not only to decide how they're going to enforce mask requirements, but they have the authority to push back and follow the will of the parents for the students in their districts. We have on our website, we have a section under school solutions where you'll see California school boards that over the last month have 5 of them from 3 different counties, Shasta, Calaveras, and San Bernardino counties have put forth resolutions or positions saying not, some are simple, just saying we won't enforce something before the state requires it, but the other ones are actually a strong refusal to implement, and this one, Denise, it's on the school solutions, refusal to implement a policy, not only some of them for their students, but also for their adult employees, teachers and staff. So this is going to be really important. What it does is it shows there is a roadmap there. This is one of the most important things, and that's what you'll find on our website is the roadmap that various county boards or school boards have taken that show you can push back. This is what we want to do. Instead of them always pushing liability off somewhere else or to the state or to the federal government or what have you, know that the liability lies with them, and so does the authority.
Yes. So on Monday, there was a protest at the California Capitol, which was great to see all of the parents waking up and really pausing and saying, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this, right? I'm not going to be forced into putting my children into this. The Capitol is great for networking and connecting with others, but I think people get very distracted of state policies and state representatives and state elected representatives that are putting forward these policies. They're not laws, right? They're guidance. And it's really important that we start focusing locally. So when you do have those school sit-outs, you go to your school boards, you go to your school districts, and you let them know they do have the authority to push back on this. And a lot of times what we're seeing is people passing the buck saying, oh, my hands are tied. What that really means is that they don't want to challenge because they're scared of being threatened to have the funding removed. At this point, we really need to start putting pressure on these people. No amount of funding is worth putting our children in any type of risk. And so when we say you work locally, the school boards absolutely do have the authority to push back. We've been seeing that in different counties across the state. We've been seeing the resolutions being passed. And this really is a time to where when you see that your county is really working to put these resolutions forward, you have to continue, you have to bring in support. You have to bring in the people who are going to hold the line and say, look, we can either be with you or we can work against you. We can campaign against you. And the weakest links are really the schools and the school boards. They're the ones who live in our community. They're the ones they have to see us every day. So localism, that's the title of this, localism is key and deterministic on what your county and your schools are going to look like.
Yeah, 100%. So local campaigns, even if you want to affect the state level, and when you go into the school boards, you can bring forth the 5 different districts in California that have already, set the roadmap and say, this is where we're telling you you need to go. And you don't even have to pioneer it. You're not alone in this. And this is what we want. And don't accept anything else. And keep putting the pressure on, keep putting the spotlight, keep organizing people. It's also important to engage with city council and board of supervisors or commissioners, depending on your state. All these players are connected. They also all are connected up to state representatives. So the more that the voice comes, not only from the people, but from the different elected boards saying the people aren't going to accept any of these terms, the better we all have at every effort that we're making. And even if you're for state legislation, even if you're in a region where your representative is a solid no against any mandate, anything that takes away your choice or your privacy or subjects you to harassment and discrimination, even if your state representative or even your board is a supervisor is saying that, you still need to engage in the battle. And you can not only help in other areas, but you need to force your representative, and I mean force because this is what it is, pressure. You need to pressure them to act strategically on behalf of their representatives in every relationship they have, both inside the Capitol and within their district community. So the pressure needs to be relentless, and on everyone, on our allies, on our enemies, and particularly on the movable middle.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of times people saying, well, the cities can't do that. The cities can't ban the vaccine passport. The city can't do this. That's incorrect. We see City of LA, they put in the ordinance for the vaccine passport. Cities can do the exact same opposite. But again, it comes down to the funding and comes down to the threats of the states withholding funding from schools or, for counties so they don't get their nice new cars, their new buildings, their new courthouses, all the things that really are not COVID related. What would be interesting, and this is just off topic, but well, kind of, I would be inclined to do requests, Freedom of Information Act requests and public records requests to find out how your county has spent that COVID money.
Yeah, that's an important one. And there's a lot of things we're going to add in more in depth onto the website, including employment mandates and strategies on self-organizing and fighting back. Things like around employee resource groups and Skelly rights, and also the general process for Freedom of Information and public records requests. It's a very, very important one. It's a tool that can be used from school boards to 504, Section 504 processes for your children regarding masks. It can be used with your county boards, elected boards around misuse of public funds. It's a really important tool. So we're going to go in depth into laying out on the website really what that tool steps look like and give examples so that people can see how they can utilize that, because you never know what you're going to catch. Plus also it spotlights and it shows that we are watching and we will not accept the way things have been going. Anything short of a full course correct that protects choice, privacy, and protects against discrimination, segregation, and harassment. One thing also is know that that we want to talk a little bit about the personal belief exemption. So when we say PBE, that's personal belief exemption to the COVID shot for children, private, public, K through 12, daycare, preschool in California. That is there right now. We have school districts like LAUSD who are choosing to step outside their bounds of authority and say that they can require it now and that you don't have a PBE attached. There are lawsuits pressing on them. They have been pushed off by the judges. That's not unsurprising. You can't fully trust the litigative landscape as well. And one thing everyone should know is you want a good decision on lawsuits, then we all need to push and demand it from the ground up. That's key. So, in places like LAUSD that are moving ahead with this, this is where organizing and pushing back now around, honestly, it's civil disobedience. Think picket lines, think, or, sit outs, think sit-ins, whatever it is. And I know people are going to say, what about us pissing off the parents who are dropping off kids and now they're mad at us? Well, you know what? People were really mad in the 50s and 60s too about the desegregation of the school system. And that's what people had to go through in order to make sure that human and civil rights were not violated. And so, it's really important that we understand that and we stay committed and engaged in a campaign. As far as the other schools, there's the schools we talked about, the school districts that are going to fight it, or school boards that will fight it. Then there's most that are just waiting. They're not going to advance something ahead of time, but they're not pushing back and protecting our children and parental rights. Those schools, we've already heard from people, are telling people, oh, don't worry, nothing's going to happen until next school year. What that causes you to do is to disengage and to not stay active. This is it. We are already behind the timeline on this. No matter where you are needed to immediately re-engage in your children's life and education and community civic engagement in a way you never probably have been before.
Yep. People need to be uncomfortable. And, when we get that, well, parents are going to get mad or the school's going to be upset and they're going to retaliate. Look, we're past the point of politely emailing or politely calling our governor or our elected representatives. Now is the time, like Tara said, for nonviolent civil disobedience, even if that means walk-ins where you're walking the children into school maskless. I personally hope that everybody does pull their children. Schools are not safe. And we'll get into what we mean by children are not safe in school. But there's a comment here, Sac City Unified pushing a PBE if a doctor signs off that they educated the parent first. That's not part of a personal belief exemption. And it's really important that you as a parent understand what the laws say, what personal belief exemptions are, so you can go back to the school and you're able to articulate your rights and articulate the personal belief exemption or anything that has to do with your children. What the schools really do count on is ignorance. They count on the fact that parents aren't fully engaged because we're working, we have tons of things going on, we have lots of things on our plate, and it makes it really easy to be able to just send your children to school and not have to look at the laws and the policies and all the things that take us forever. But it is really important for you to understand what your rights are as a parent. Right now, schools are not allowing parents on site. Schools have a lot of schools have clinics on site. Schools have Planned Parenthood on sites. And with the laws that have been put in place and the policies being put in place, it is really important that parents understand you can't fight this battle with your children in school. It's impossible. You have to be able to pull your children. And I know it sounds a lot harder, right? It's a really big step, especially for parents who are just realizing what kind of terrain we're working on right now. But schools are unsafe. You can't fight a mask mandate and then send your children to school in a mask. You can't fight the vaccine mandate and then send your child to school with vaccine clinics on site and implied consent. That is, a policy from the World Health Organization. I tried to pull it up. My computer is not pulling up of course, it's not pulling up the implied consent PDF, but you can just go into DuckDuckGo and write in World Health Organization implied consent, which means if you send your child to school when you know there's a vaccine clinic, then you are giving the school consent to vaccinate your children. At this point, you don't even have to know that there's a clinic. We've seen many different cases of children being vaccinated against parental consent because they got the wrong child or they have the wrong dosage. Vaccinations should not be happening at school, especially when parents aren't allowed on site. So where we ask you, call your school and ask them, is there a vaccine clinic today? When's the rolling clinic coming out? It's really important that you're fully engaged in all aspects of your children's education. If they're at school, you have to understand and be aware what is on school campus because you're not allowed on it.
Yeah, and that's really really something important to know. You're not going to be told about exemptions for kids on IEPs. You're not going to be told about a PBE when it comes, if CDPH should put it in, when they make it active. You're not going to be told about a clinic on campus, and you can't trust. No matter what you think, no matter what you think you signed, you cannot trust that your child's going to be safe on it. So you have to take precautionary measures. We wouldn't want you to learn the hard way, the way other parents have. And so, as far as the PBE goes, do not submit anything ahead of a final timeline, a final position. There's only a few school districts that are up against something like that right now. Everybody else, you hold the line and you force this, engagement in, develop engagement in your community around the school boards, to not institute this and develop those relationships. As far as civil disobedience, let's discuss that, Denise.
Sure, my favorite subject right now. It's very much needed. Civil disobedience, I know it sounds like a scary word, especially to people who are just getting, becoming aware of what's going on. But civil disobedience is noncompliance. It is standing there with your children, either walking in or walking out. It is having those picnics in front of the restaurants that are asking for a vaccine card. It is doing the pieces that are uncomfortable. People don't want to be out there with their bullhorns and protesting against whatever, restaurants or chamber of commerce or, small business, whatever it is. It is one of the most important pieces of this puzzle, because throughout history, civil disobedience, noncompliance has been the only way that things change. And that means that it is up to us to network together, to lock arms together, and to really be engaged locally and go to these local events. So that way you can connect with people together in the same school district, in the same, same district where an elected representative is. So civil disobedience has worked, and it is the only thing that does work.
And in 2019, at the end of the legislative session, just so you know, me and another former partner, after the Senate Health Committee hearings, we ran the rest of the hearings. We ran the Assembly Health Committee hearings. That means we ran legislative strategy. We brought in the experts, the ones you'll know, from people like Bobby Kennedy to Lee Dundas to Bob Sears, to various experts to speak at the hearings, trying to stop the bill. The best place to stop them, well, is before. That's why, the point is even now, even while, is to get engaged now. But other than that, at the hearings are generally the place to stop them. By the final hearing, the picture you're seeing behind Denise right now is the final legislative hearing of the session in 2019. And we made the decision to engage in civil disobedience as the strategic moment in time we were in. And we ended up standing on chairs, American flag upside down, which is is the US flag code for nation in distress. And our message was simply this is tyranny, and that we will not comply with anything that will hurt our children ever. And if it doesn't matter if it's an executive order, a regulation, a law, if it's unjust, if it's wrong, and it is our duty to not comply. And as Denise said, throughout history, that has been the mantra from the founders to Gandhi to MLK to Malcolm X. It is, if it is wrong, it's wrong. If it's an unjust law, we are meant to break. It is meant to be broken. In fact, if it's an illegal law, it's simply illegal. That's what we're saying. So, and it's against God's laws. It's against what is true and right. So what we did is we stood there and we said, go ahead, you can arrest us because we will never comply with this. And then we went on to hold an 11-day Occupy in September of 2019 of the California Capitol for the final 14 days of session. And the reason why that's important to know is because what's needed, whether it's organizing locally to build networks of people and figure out how to engage and how to create alternatives, or it's a state or a federal battle. These are about feats of endurance and sacrifice, where we are committed to the level that we're showing and proving that not only are we going to hold the line, but we will never comply with this. We painted 3 banners. We painted them strategically to be the message of our actions, which was, 1, this is the new civil rights movement, because it was, and trust me, we got a lot of flack for painting that in 2019. And not only do we stand by it to the end, but it is certainly proofed out more than ever in sense. And then the other 2, one was we the people versus the vaccine extremists. As you've seen, the constant reframing is that those seeking to preserve choice and privacy and anti-discrimination are actually the ones being called the extremists, when in truth it's the opposite. And then the final one was, welcome to Calabama, y'all. And we actually stole, we can't claim the statement. That was from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But we painted it as a banner because it represented that anybody, and we kept saying to Newsom, to the media, to the legislators, to everyone involved, that if Newsom or Cuomo in New York, anyone that was going to violate our children's right to be free in this manner, to segregate them and discriminate against them, would be the next governor, George Wallace. He was the governor of Alabama who fought desegregation of the South. He famously stood in the schoolroom door blocking it. And we said, we will march the children through the schoolroom doors. You don't get to do this. And anyone that does is on the wrong side of history. And as you can see, we are there now across the spectrum, because the entire world is set up in a challenge scenario. And whether it's work or school or shopping or travel.
Yeah. One thing I want people to know and understand is that we really have to walk in this with no fear. Even if you see a police officer who's standing there creating these fake barricades like they did in San Francisco, where they barricaded the sidewalk off, there's nothing happening there. There's no law saying you can't walk on the sidewalk. It can't be open to bicyclists and then closed to protesters. That's not how it works. It's really important. I know it's a really scary thing to do, and to feel that, you see a person of authority, you see someone there with the badge, and you feel like you can't move forward on this. During this time when we stood on these chairs, we were threatened by the politicians. We were threatened by the CHP. We were threatened by the sergeants. We were threatened by everybody, saying that they were going to arrest us. Then arrest us. There's nothing that I'm doing wrong. There's nothing that I would be ashamed of if I do get arrested. This is where it really is holding the line and saying, you're not going to move me. You can't threaten me. You can't threaten me with jail. You can't threaten me with fines, because nothing is more important than protecting my family and my children. When we did the vaccine extremists, that is literally what they are. They are extremists. What they are implementing is all vaccines, all the time, no exemptions, no exceptions. This isn't just going to end at the childhood vaccines and COVID. We have over 100 new vaccines in the pipeline. This is going to add the flu vaccine, HPV vaccine, and you're not going to have a choice if you put your children in these schools. And it's not going to end at children. When they came for adults with this round, they realized they couldn't really get the adults to do what they wanted. And so now, again, how they normally do, they attack the children, and people have been like, okay, it's just childhood vaccines. That's not my fight. It is your fight. Just how 277 was your fight, 276 was your fight, but they labeled it anti-vaccine. They labeled us crazy in the hopes that, and it worked, that people would be too scared to engage, just how they do right now, how they call Tara and I, they call us extremists, they call us terrorists, they call us white supremacists. We are not scared of any of the name calling that the media or politicians try to tell us, because we know that they're wrong. We know that we're doing the righteous thing. But what we're asking you to do is really step into a place of no fear And I know that's hard to do, but you step into a place saying, I know that we are doing the righteous thing to protect our children. I know that there are millions of us, and you should know that it's not going to stop until you say it stop. It's only going to get worse. What we've seen last year with the lockdowns was real soft. It was the grooming to what we're going to see now. And come this winter, come January and February, and when legislation comes in, we're going to start seeing some really incredible bills and policies put into place. That's why we keep saying localism. By the time it gets to the Capitol, that is an echo chamber. It does not matter anymore. Going to those representatives and lobbying them, it's too late. It is important that you spend your efforts, you spend your money, whatever it is, you spend on your local politicians, on your district offices, because Capitol means that has already passed.
Yeah, 100%. So critical to not be silent in this time, to not, and not only will you find your own freedom in that, where you can't be silenced or shamed, but it's truly the way forward to the gentlest path out of what is a totalitarian and authoritarian global takeover. And, it may sound extreme, but it's really important to know that that's the moment in time we're in. And there is a degree of what's been called mass hypnosis or mass formation, where a percentage of the human population is really in lockstep with this agenda. There's another percentage that isn't. And then there's a silent middle. And it's really important that those that are speaking out, that are unafraid of standing and talking to every person they know. And this is about simply talking to everyone within your sphere of connection and influence. It's critical, and to help move those in the middle to that position, because once a totalitarian regime silences any dissenters, that's when it gets the most ugly portions of it come in. So it's really, really important. One of our greatest weapons against such authoritarian control is dissent, is to speak out. And so that is simply the most important. And with censorship so rampant, Denise and I are permanently removed from multiple platforms, and we're shadow banned and censored on so many others. Please share our stuff to help it get out, but also know how important it is that you yourself use every channel, from things like your social media to texting and calling friends to using channels like Nextdoor and Locals. All those things matter. Don't be afraid. They're critical. And then we want to talk about pulling the kids out and building another way forward. We don't want to, this is getting near the end of the hour. We want to keep it at the hour. We're going to do more of these because honestly, we just skated through like a high level, and there's so much more going on. This, remember that why it's so important to fight the tracking and the record systems is because we all have our digital fingerprints through all the social media we're engaged in, our phones, the surveillance things. The passports or the digital IDs are the connection of those two to create the social credit system and to create the full control structure. So it's really important we don't let them link. It's really important that we don't let the digital passports and tracking systems go into effect.
Yeah, and we're seeing that in Utah right now. They are piloting the digital tracking system to where your driver's license, this is no longer a conspiracy theory, right? It's happening, it's landed, nothing is coming, it's already here. Your driver's license is connected to your medical records, to your social credit score, to everything in order for you to travel. We've been saying this for a long time, that in order for you to participate in this society, which means traveling out of your state bounds, going to grocery stores, going to the mall and stores like that, it's going to be implemented. And we saw in LA the fight and the pushback of people saying, I'm just not going to shop there. That's the part we really need to start thinking about, is I'm just not going to go there then. People are going to OC, people are going to other counties that are friendlier to medical freedom. It is important that we walk the talk, we walk the walk and we talk the talk, right? We do all of it. We're saying we're not giving you any money, Trader Joe's, because you're asking for this information. I don't care if you're now more lenient with your policies. I don't care if you've dropped it. I'm no longer going to be giving you money. Same with the schools. I am not going to negotiate my child's safety in order for them to come to these schools. And this is where we have to start utilizing the millions of parents who are in the same boat, who are now coming together and figuring out solutions to alternatives of public school. I hope that this was some good information that you were able to take with you. Again, you can visit us at freedom-angels.org. We are on our website. We have the link to our YouTube channels where you can look at all of the things that we're talking about as far as private membership associations. And our website has the United Counties of America. If you already have a group in your county and you're looking to get the strategy of United Counties of America, please send us an email. We will be having a brainstorming masterminds group to bring the counties together, to lock arms, and to really use the strategy that has worked. The resolutions and the strategy that Freedom Angels has used has worked in multiple different counties and multiple different states, and you'll be able to see that on the site. I know in my county, we passed a resolution to ban the vaccine passport. We put mass choice for children in school, and our Board of Supervisors has been engaged with town halls and has filed a lawsuit with CDPH. So it is important to work locally and to work all the different pieces. It is exhausting. It is exhausting, but if we don't get engaged, then we're going to lose every single piece of our freedoms that we hold near and dear to us. So personal belief exemptions, where do you get it? This is your personal belief exemption. Please stop using templates. This is something, religious exemptions it's your religion. You can get the samples, but please use it for yourself. Do not pay somebody to do it. Do not get a template for it. This will actually flag you. So we want to make sure that we are being completely this is my personal belief exemption. You write a letter and you send it in. An earlier question, Tara, I want you to touch on it, but she says, so confirming my 6th grade son has an IEP. Will he be exempt from the C19 shot period? If that's the case, what do you mean I will have to battle it? In a short, we have like 2 minutes left. If you want to go ahead and talk about that particular battle.
Yes, your children on IEPs are exempt, even in from the existing 10 vaccines and the COVID shot. Again, no one's going to tell you that. You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to fight because you're going to have to bring bill text with you. You're going to have to bring the pieces with you, and you're going to have to go in over and over and demand that be honored. We'll keep adding links that will give more support on our website. Keep checking back because there is so much we haven't touched on. Know that through the United Counties of America initiative we developed last year, we've developed so much and it applies to counties, all counties in the nation, everywhere. One of the things we want everyone to know, terrain is everything. If you're listening to this from a state outside of California, especially if you're in good territory, you are needed more than anybody to advance good policies, good legislation, and the voice of the people demanding to protect human rights and civil rights. And that is actually critical to the success in places like California, New York, wherever. And same within California, the better terrain, we have to work harder, advance pieces with our school boards, with our superintendents, and with the supervisors, because that's going to help the communities in the community of San Francisco, of LA. Also, know this, Freedom Angels, we drafted the language for the very first banning vaccine passport resolution for a county. And that was passed in April of 2021 in Lander County, Nevada. That sets a gold standard. It includes the discussions about new platform technologies on nanotech and mRNA, as well as digital ledger and tracking systems. These are conversations that are completely connected and essential to the entire landscape. What that county lander in Nevada did, and this isn't Florida or Idaho or Texas, this is Nevada. And that county created the one and only county ordinance that has real teeth. That's essentially a county law saying in August of 2021, banning vaccine passports and discrimination in their county. That is a roadmap, just like the counties that have ended their public health emergency for a year or more and are still standing, just like the school boards fighting back. These roadmaps are available on our website. They're available to use at any county, any local board of authority, and to demand that that path be taken. And stay tuned, because like we said, we barely touched on anything, and what we really want do is share, share the experiential and institutional knowledge that we've gained through 7 years of battling on this and setting strategy and developing tools and resources. And we want to make sure that they're spread to as many hands as possible, because and know this, that every effort that you take matters. You never know where the magic's going to come from. And just because you're hitting roadblocks today does not mean that that is how it's going to stay. Every time you engage, you shift the landscape and build and organize around our children, around the people in your community, and then layer them and network them together. And that's how, we already win, because we won't, every day that we don't accept that, or every day that we live by our convictions, that we don't compromise, we have won.
Absolutely.
And so stay connected, share our stuff, because we are censored.
I'm going to give my website, and then Tara, you give Freedom Eric the website as well. So there's so many different layers of what we're working on. Can't wait to get really deep into this. But if you are in San Joaquin County, you can visit us at liberatesjc.com. That is where we are locally engaged, and we are working with elected representatives as well as appointed and the school boards. We are very organized here in the county. So please join us here. And then Tara is going to leave her website as well.
Yes, so definitely go to freedom-angels.org. That's really where we set the strategies, not only on United Counties of America includes local organizing and at the county level with electeds and the players, but it also includes the pillars of the parallel society, which is building our alternative society that won't discriminate, that won't segregate, that reimagines this world. And also, we have a campaign on the natural born human for protected class status that's very much tied into the divergent point humanity is facing on transhumanism. And the other websites, I'm also co-founder of Freedom Travel Alliance with Susan Sweeten, Kevin Jenkins, and Professor Dolores Cahill. That is one of the solutions of building a new way forward. And so that's freedomtravelalliance.com, and also co-founder of urbanglobalhealthalliance.com with Kevin Jenkins and Susan Sweeten. Proudly, Kevin is one of the disinformation dozen, and I think right, and then and Dolores is one of the global leader of misinformation. So Denise and I ride with a good, strong team.
We do.
And local, honestly, we want everyone to know that local engagement is absolutely our most the most powerful thing. That's the highest value, and building a network of people that you can enrich and educate your children and build alternative structures for food sovereignty and health and protection and communications. Those are key.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much. Remember, register your email so you can get the emails of when we're going to be back on, since we are completely off of social media. So we will see you soon. Thank you.
Telegram. Denise has a great Telegram channel.
I do. It is at 209. And also we have Freedom Angels 2 on Telegram. So if you are on my channel, I will link us all in together, and we will see you soon.
And I started a brand new Telegram channel. I got 20 subscribers. I just haven't even announced it. So Pioneer Mama, find me there, and I'll do my best to grow that.
All right. All right. Have a blessed night, y'all. We'll see you later.